Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our podcast. My name is Mir
My name is Harrison Bell.
and unfortunately, we don't have a name for this podcast yet, but surely it'll be out for the second episode. Just wanted to introduce ourselves. Surely. Do you want to go first, buddy?
Sure. So my name is Harrison Bell, as
right.
Mir just said.
That's right.
20 years old, so just a young budding soldier. Not in the army though, just in the school of NYU, great academic institution here in New York City.
Right.
And Mir will tell you a little bit more about our story, how we got here together, and why we started this podcast.
That's right. My name is Mir. I'm also 20. We're both sophomores at NYU currently, just starting this podcast, wanting to talk a little bit about economics, government, anything in between, I would say.
Yeah, current events, finance, all sorts of things that, young people are not super interested in. And we kind of want to act as a liaison in a way between some of these, things going on in the world and, people who may not have exposure to it or may not be interested in it. We want to make it interesting, insightful, and have fun doing so.
Yeah, I mean, Harrison and I have conversations all the time already, just talking about these different things. We oftentimes try to work out what people are saying. Yesterday we had a conversation about why gold is, a protection against inflation. And, truth be told, neither of us really knew why. We just believed it. But it's good talking about it, talking through it, actually trying to understand it in terms of finance, in terms of economics. In that sense, I'm an economics major currently at NYU. So, hopefully we're going to finish that out pretty soon. And what about you, Harrison?
Yeah, so I'm a public policy major. I started out similar to Mir over here as an economics major as well, but decided that the math that the NYU economics curriculum requires is definitely not my strong suit, but it's also not my interest. I mean, I did try last year, took a course called Math for Economics, very infamous course here at NYU.
Is it infamous?
It is infamous. It's
really?
infamous. Even the sweats, they struggle a bit.
Really?
In MFE.
I don't think the sweats
not
struggle
the
as
sweats,
much,
but some do. Some do.
Yeah,
struggle.
and so basically with us, with me being kind of on an economics track and Harrison being on a politics track, more or less, we can combine, politics, government, and whatnot. Do you want to give kind of an indication of some of your previous maybe political leanings? Do you have any biases that you might want to expose here?
Wow,
in the
we're
first
getting
episode?
into that real early, huh?
I mean, I think it's good for the listeners to know, just coming into it.
Well, I'd be lying if I hadn't said that I'd caught a bit of slack from some of our counterparts and acquaintances and friends back in Portland. We're from Portland, Oregon, by the way.
Oh, that's right. We actually didn't tell that whole part of the
No, we
story,
didn't.
which is that we have actually been, working, being friends, not working together, but being friends since middle school.
Literally
Really.
working together too. We were flipping
working
burgers together, stocking shelves at Nike together, and started a business together, real estate wholesaling, which I'm sure we'll get into in future episodes.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've basically just been on a path we've done a whole lot of stuff together. It's okay. We've done a whole lot of stuff together in the past few years and continue to be at NYU. We live together now over in the East Village and
Deep East
Deep
Village.
East Village.
Avenue D.
That's right.
You know what they say? Avenue A, it's all right.
It's all
Avenue
right.
B, be careful. Avenue C, use caution. And Avenue D, you're gonna die. Sadly, we out here in the hood, man. But it's alright.
It's okay.
It's
It's not too bad actually. So what did you have today on the agenda for us?
Yeah. So first episode, we just wanted to give you all introduction to some of our backgrounds and why we started this podcast.
Yep.
Again, I want to emphasize that Mir and I here are not STEM guys.
Mm-hmm.
Neither him or I are skilled.
Actually, I'm technically a STEM major.
Oh,
Technically, economics is a STEM major.
it's
as of 2018,
it's a Bush League.
16.
It's a Bush League STEM major.
I think what Harrison is trying to say is we're not necessarily academically skilled in the way that a lot of people are. For example, we have our roommate that is extremely mathematically inclined.
Right.
We're not necessarily that, but we like talking through things. We like understanding them. That's part of why we started this podcast, is to actually talk about it out loud. Sometimes we understand certain economic concepts by just talking about them out loud.
Right. I mean, I would say that we don't necessarily, know how to, calculate any advanced physics, or we don't understand orbital dynamics the same way that many of our friends over at Tandon School of Engineering might.
That's normal. That's normal.
Yeah, of course it's normal. We're also not pre-med, so we may not be coming out of college skilled, which, technically skilled with something tangible that we can bring to the workplace. But we want to use this podcast as kind of a means to, show, people that life is not always about that. There's not an equation for how to be successful in life.
That's a great way to put it.
It's a game. Life is a game. And you have to understand the little things that successful people do and capitalize on that knowledge in order to, be successful and reap benefits that,
Yeah. Yeah. I think Harrison and I
people
right
have.
now are just trying to become successful ourselves, trying to figure it out. We're in our 20s now, trying to find our path forward and talking about it, having a little record of it. I think will be good. And for you, the listener, you get to kind of explore. We have you'll find that we have a pretty interesting dynamic going on between us two. We have certain words that we like to use, between us two. So hopefully you're going to be, immersed into the Smolin and Bell universe.
I hope so.
Yeah. That's the
So
goal.
first, on today's agenda, we just wanted to give a little update on what's going on in our country. Specifically, obviously many things are changing with new administration. Donald Trump took office January 20th, 2025. Here we are exactly 2 months later.
Let me talk about something before we get into it. Today we got an email from NYU advising a lot of the international students and staff to actually stay home for spring break. Did you see that email?
No.
By any chance?
Did not.
What are your thoughts on that? What do you think of people that have legal immigration status being worried about, potentially being deported back to their home
Realistically,
country?
I think NYU is fear mongering.
But this has been the case in Brown, at Brown University. They, one of the professors didn't get let back in the country after visiting Lebanon, I believe.
I still think it's fear mongering.
Okay.
And
For what
here's
purpose
why.
do you
Here's
think?
why. Obviously, NYU, we go to a very, very liberal institution, and it is absolutely partisan by definition. We came from this. Our high school, we went to an independent, progressive K through 12 school in Portland. Both of us did.
College prep.
College
would
prep
say.
school. That was also very left leaning politically, and here we came to NYU expecting similar, but in reality we just got even worse, and in my opinion it's beneficial to nobody.
I would say it's important for the listener to kind of understand that we're coming from a pretty centrist background.
Yeah.
We live in New York. We're from Portland. I would think a lot of people would expect just demographically for us to be a little bit left leaning. I would say we're center and maybe a little bit right leaning in terms of fiscal policy. So I think it'll be interesting also to hear that from a young perspective. Is I think a lot of times you have two types of young influencers currently, which are you have the woke influencers that are
Yes.
a lot of advocation for Palestine, a lot of whatnot, DEI, trying to preserve kind of that pretty radical culture that we've established here in the U.S. And then we have the other side, which is
Nelk boys.
yeah, exactly. It's Nuck boys. It's just these deep right
Charlie
kind of-
Kirk.
Yeah, Charlie Kirk is a great example. And these people appeal to the young audience. I think, with our platform here with this podcast that we will name very soon, we will kind of be exploring the middle here, kind of the rational perspective. I know it might not be the flashiest one, but kind of being able to hear that from some young people, I think.
I think that's a great word, by the way. Rationalism, right? Common sense. This is something that I definitely want to explore in this podcast,
definitely.
and something that is often overlooked. And
Isn't it funny that common sense has become a Republican term?
yeah, why is it?
I think that's very it's almost kind of hypocritical, I would say. Or not hypocritical, it's kind of just ironic.
Yeah,
Right?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty.
How could you it's kind of like similar with Doge kind of becoming a
a bad thing.
a bad thing in the eyes of a lot of the left leaning lawmakers. It's like, yeah, I understand that the methods that they're going about it are actually pretty questionable, and we will get into that in later episodes. But overall, you can't hate on the fact that improving government efficiency and actually using taxpayer dollars in a better way is definitely a positive overall for the country. So
Absolutely. We're also going to get into the tax system on this podcast.
oh, we are.
And just a little bit about a few different economic philosophies. There are people on both sides of the aisle that have very, very, very different viewpoints on the best way to distribute wealth and collect federal and state income tax here in this country. And we'll obviously provide examples of different strategies, whether that be a progressive tax like we have now, a flat tax, or even a regressive tax, which we'll get into just a little bit here and there. And the reason being is because it's very applicable to current events in this narrative around politics. Mm-hmm. People often, the left, in my opinion, they often want to take economics out of the equation, out of the political equation. They want to focus on the social issues, 85 to 90%, as if it is 85 to 90% of the debate, and it's completely untrue.
Okay, we've already on this episode talked a lot about what the left does this, the left does this. Do you think the right does this in a lot of ways too?
Of course. The far right is just as bad as the far left.
Certainly.
There is questions around what is fact and what isn't on the far right. There are questions of what is too far in terms of
Do you think in terms of politics, kind of taking economics out of it for the right as well? Because I feel like tariffs are one of those things that you're just taking pure economics out of the equation for the political gain that you're getting from saying, "Oh, our country's going to be so rich off these tariffs." I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case.
Absolutely, I think tariffs, as in matter of fact, as we have kind of on the agenda for today, tariffs are something that has created an enormous amount of economic uncertainty in our country right now. I mean, just
So what do we have coming up?
Yeah,
here?
so just to start more on the finance side of things, we obviously the Fed had a meeting just the other day.
Okay,
and they decided they had a 2-day meeting. Their quarterly meeting, and they decided to hold interest rates steady at 4.25% or so.
Okay,
and this obviously this meeting was very much anticipated due to a lot of the trade standoffs and tariffs that have been levied on other countries. President Trump has officially enacted tariffs on China, Mexico, and Canada that have caused all sorts of fluctuations in the stock market.
Right. So what do you think in terms of the Fed? What is the Fed's trying to signal to the U.S. population here with keeping the rates kind of stable for now?
Yeah, so the Fed doesn't want to lower them anymore than for the quarter, because
is this an inflationary thing, you think? Because I saw a few. Obviously, inflation is, I believe it's down, but in a very small, very incremental amount, right? In the past month or so.
I think they want to keep some of these. They want to keep spending about where it is in the country. We're seeing a number of positive economic trends. Unemployment is relatively low at the moment, although there is a pretty tight job market. But unemployment itself is relatively stable. And additionally, let's see, right? We obviously have these tariffs that have been causing the stock market in particular to be incredibly volatile.
Okay, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Because I talked to a relative of mine recently, and they were very kind of worried about the U.S. economy as a whole. Potentially kind of losing a lot of faith in the strength of the U.S. economy. Are you losing any faith in the U.S. economy at the moment? Do you think tariffs are going to be they're going to come and pass, or is this going to be a thing that's actually going to affect U.S. and world relations in the long term. Because, and the reason I say this is because the way in which Trump is doing it is very almost willy nilly. It's very random. It's very provocatory. You know, it's in that sense. So, do you think the U.S. as a whole, which has been a stronghold of diplomatic relations with the Western countries, do you think that
No,
these
I
tariffs
don't
are going
think
to have
so.
a big impact?
I don't think so. And the reason being is because this is one thing in the long list of global politics and geopolitics that has um, fluctuated heavily in the last 50 to 100 years. I mean, this is one thing in the list.
What has?
Just general geopolitical relations and foreign affairs have been always really since the end of World War II. There have been something every year. You don't really think about this, but something happens every year that is a big historical event.
That's
and
true.
The American economy refuses to quit. It grows. It grows and grows. And the stock market, while people may be worried about their 401ks, their IRAs, they might be worried about their retirement savings. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all about.
Surely you can't believe in the U.S. economy blindly as well. You know, it definitely has its weak spots. I think a lot of countries are catching up. I know China's currently in a recession or in a recession-like state. So, you know, I'm not sure that the U.S. can dominate at the same level for a long time. And I'm a big proponent in U.S. strength.
I think that might be true, but I don't think these tariffs from Trump will affect.
Well, I'll tell you
all
something.
that
It's
much.
because, you know, Canada and Mexico, which have been our trading allies for a long time, very reliable trading allies. Now they're all of a sudden considering their moves, and those are countries that have already had tariffs enacted on them. What about the countries that have yet to receive any kind of punishment from the U.S. in terms of tariffs? They're looking at the U.S. and saying, well, this is an uncertain economy. We cannot invest in this because we don't know what's going to happen. The stock market could just drop, just like it did a few percentage points. You know, actually, it was pretty significant, right? It was about 5 percentage points. Did it drop overall?
Around there. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but around there.
Well, we'll keep monitoring the tariff system. I think we definitely need to read up on it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Definitely, you know, come into it with a little more knowledge. I think basically my takeaway from the tariffs right now as an introductory step is we don't know where they're going to go yet. And personally, I think if this trend continues from President Trump, we're going to see some, frankly, pretty volatile relations with the rest of the world, which I think could be detrimental to the U.S. economy.
Yeah, the tariff. We'll just have to see how they play out. Like Mir said, I mean, you know, here to quote the Wall Street Journal, an article on this, you know, decision from the Fed yesterday. They believe that inflation is actually going to rise, 0.2% or so, over the course of this year, from the tariffs, which is not incredibly significant, to be honest with you. But and obviously they but that is why they're keeping rates the same. That is why that they're not continuing to lower rates this quarter, because of this economic uncertainty. But you can expect the rates to keep coming down. The cost of money will keep going down, and our economy will keep. I believe our economy will continue to pick up speed.
Yeah, that sounds good. I believe that this is definitely a possibility.
So another thing that's pretty hot right now, politically, is obviously Trump signed the executive order. I believe on his first day in office, about the trans athletes.
That's right.
And many schools, UPenn included. There was a story that just came out the other day that Trump, took away, I think, $175 million on over a trans athlete competing on the swim team, on the women's swim team. And what do you think about this? What do you think about it, pausing this amount of funding?
I know that trans athletes in the sports has been a pretty hot topic. I think it's one of the reasons that Trump won the election. I mean, that ad about Trump cares about they, them, not you. I mean, Kamala cares about they, them, not you. I mean, that is one of the most vile, I would say, ads. I mean, it's definitely most very effective. Here's what I will say: looking at the stats, looking at how many trans athletes there are in America, there just aren't that many. There just aren't many at all. It's if you put it in perspective, it's one of the most non-issues in the U.S. political spectrum that we have right now. There's no reason to be talking about it. I don't think it's a real issue. I think what it does signify though is how people are tired of the overall left woke culture. That makes sense. I think this is one of those acts from the Republican Party that's saying we're done with wokeness. We're done with right.
Correct.
Is it actually about trans athletes?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I'm not
I
sure.
completely agree, and I think that's why I don't want to get into it too much because it just seems almost like a non-issue. I don't believe
It is a
in
non-issue
making,
statistically.
Yes, correct. I don't believe in making policy that at least spending a lot of time on policy and drafting legislation that affects such a small minority of our population. And while I am an advocate of being inclusive to everybody, one of the trans athletes in sports, that's one of the things that it just seems very very nuanced, very case by case basis, and I don't think that we should be making signing any national laws that says contrary to what Trump has done.
I completely agree. I think that it would be different if we were speaking as women athletes. I think that's the experience that actually matters. It doesn't matter about two guys that are no longer really playing sports too much, competitive sports, coming on this podcast and talking about, trans athletes should do this or that. I think it's up to the women that are in the sport to decide, frankly, what they want to do. If they feel that trans athletes, male athletes competing in their sports or male transitioned athletes competing in their sports is detrimental to the sport, detrimental to them, I think that they should have the right to decide. I think what you're going to find on this podcast is that Harrison and I are pretty big advocates of, being not libertarians necessarily, but we're very for the fundamental rights that America was built on. That's freedom of speech, that's freedom of expression, and that's basically the American dream. Being able to, that's what makes America great, in my opinion, is the fact that a middle class person, a person working in a Ford factory can afford a Ford. That's one of the first big breakthroughs that made America the greatest, most wealthiest country in the history of this world. And I think that is what was going to keep driving us forward. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree at all. I want us to be really objective on this podcast, almost aggressively objective. Kind of riding the line between what might consider, what might get you and I in a bit of trouble on the left.
Well, here's the thing.
With also what many on the right would consider, relatively progressive, ideologies.
Here's the deal. Yes, we're objective guys in general. We try to think pretty rationally. We try to have common sense. We will not be withholding our opinions on this podcast just for the sake of staying politically correct or, appeasing a certain party or appeasing a certain kind of people. Of course, being objective is important. I think at the same time, the viewers want to hear our opinion.
Yeah.
I think they want to know what we think about it
Realistically,
as well.
let's keep it a buck, bro.
Let's keep it a big buck and talk about what we actually think about it. I think the trans athlete issue is, we can get riled up. We could joke around here and there, but if we're keeping it a buck, it's not a real issue. So I don't think we should be talking about it much. What else do you have on the agenda for today?
Yeah, obviously, there has been a lot of talk recently about this deportation thing, right? These illegal immigrants, these prisoners, who were sending down to
El
Salvador, and putting them in the jails down there. And those, let me tell you, those jails are not jails you want to be in.
The worst.
They're the worst.
The
It's
worst in the world.
is as bad as it gets, and
They're the worst.
quite literally. So what happened is a federal judge blocked Trump's executive order to do this, and there's been a whole lot. It has sparked a huge debate on the power of, you know, a federal judge to block
Oh yeah.
executive orders.
Oh, is that what we're getting into
This
right
is,
now?
I don't want to get into this right now. It's a longer discussion. It's also something
That's okay.
that
We're
I
only at 27
feel-
minutes right now.
I
We can keep it going.
I also feel like it's a little bit nuanced. Obviously, Mir and I don't want to speak for him, but we are obviously for in general a smaller federal government.
Yeah, definitely.
Power in the hands of the states, if anything.
Hands of the people, preferably.
Well, in the hands of the people.
But yes, through the states.
Through the states, states' rights, and a federal judge being able to block an executive order. I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you, to make an informed decision, to make a informed opinion.
I know a little bit about it. Here's what I'll say about specifically the immigration thing. I think that we in America have a judicial system that is not perfect, but it's one of the best in the world. I mean, we could talk a lot about how different cases got it wrong. A person got, was innocent and got, got sentenced and whatnot. I think that is very important. I think we do need to fix the systemic issues that are going on with that. But overall, I think the American system is one of the most fair in the world, and I think it's not worth changing. I think Trump saying that we should impeach federal judges, I think it's not necessarily right. I think that it goes against the fabric of the U.S. in the way it was built. I think that is pretty important. We're kind of constitutionalists, if you were to really ask us. Now, the biggest thing is that we're going to talk about is the federal judge thing is good, but the immigration thing, I think if we could touch on it a little bit, I think it would be pretty interesting for the viewers, for the listeners as well. You might be watching this on YouTube. You might be listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you again. Please visit smallandbell.com for more info. Just
Definitely. Kidding me? Definitely visit smallandbell.com.
So
especially if you want to
on
sell
the
your
immigration
house.
issue, I think just please stick around and listen to our upcoming episode about immigration, because we will be talking about it in much more detail. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here from Russia, about 10 years or so ago, and I am not a traditional immigrant in the sense that I was already a U.S. citizen when I came to the U.S., but a lot of my family, came here for the first time from the Soviet Union, and I am a big believer in coming here the right way. I'm a big believer in coming here the legal way. My family also fled persecution from their state, and it was also, at times dangerous, at times unprosperous situation that they were coming from, and they managed to do it the legal way, the right way. They managed to stay in the country and build a very prosperous life for themselves. I think that if you have value to offer to the U.S. economy, to the U.S. as a whole, I think you should be able to come here. I don't believe that we should be having an open border policy in any sense. I think that we should be protecting our borders. I think it's very important for the integrity of our country, for the safety of our streets. Any thoughts on this, Harrison?
Yeah, immigration. It's one of those things. It's obviously one of those controversial topics, but I do believe that there is a rational middle ground again to it. I think that letting a lot of these guys that are coming into the country, for example, these Venezuelan migrants that Trump wanted to deport, these are rough people, as Trump said, right? They're rough people. They're coming in, and not only are we giving them housing, we're giving some of them debit cards to spend
New York
money.
is especially very bad about this.
I mean, this is it really is a little bit ridiculous. You have people who wait months and if not years to become a U.S. citizen. That's all they want, and then people and they get nothing. They get nothing, absolutely nothing. and they've come to America to find success, to find economic freedom. To they still believe in the American dream. Although, I will be realistic. The old idea of the American dream is not what it used to be. I still believe it exists, but it's not what it used to be.
Yep.
And then you have these folks coming in from around the country thinking that they can just claim that say that they have for lack of a better word, kind of exclaim that they have such a terrible situation in their country and that they need to come here to America to escape it. And while that might be true, we just cannot afford to be giving out all these free handouts to people who do not come in the legal way. And who are they to take precedence over the folks who do try to do it legally? I think this is not anything that is unfair or unrealistic.
I think a lot of people from the left would say that you're being pretty unempathetic, incompassionate in saying this, because a lot of people are fleeing gang violence.
Yes, they are, but
I think if you were in that situation, you would also want to come to America. You would also traverse, the Darien Gap, or whatever they call it.
Yeah, the 80 mile stretch in what is that, in Panama, or in what is it, Honduras?
I don't know. But
it's Central American country.
I would do it as well. I mean, these are, at the end of the day, somewhat, these are hardworking people.
Of course, they're hardworking people.
A lot of them. I think you say they're rough people. I think some of them are rough people. Too many of them are rough people.
I didn't say all of them were rough people.
For sure. But I think that there's definitely, I understand them. I think the process, though, right now for getting being a legal immigrant is pretty tough. Long wait lines. I think that's what we need to focus on first and foremost, is getting those people processed a lot more quickly. I mean, it's years. You realize it's years to be able to come into the country if you're seeking asylum.
Like I just said.
The proper way. So what the Biden administration did is they made all these workarounds around this broken system of getting immigrants in here legally and vetting them properly. Is so they just basically gave them a bunch of exceptions, which were not, which I believe was not the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is to fix the legal immigration system and have people be processed more efficiently and properly, and have resources for that. And that way people can come in legally and actually be contributing positively to the US.
Of course, I'm pro immigration in general. I'm just anti illegal immigration. We need more people. This is, Elon Musk is not a very popular guy at the moment, but what he says is, we need population growth to compete with China, to just in general, just for the advancement of the human race. Population growth is a good thing. And here in America, we have an enormous amount of unused land that it's not as if we have a space issue. I mean, China is bigger than the US.
Is it bigger?
Yes, it is. Geographically, it is. Not by a ton, but it is.
Well, you got to remember that a lot of those are uninhabitable lands. I mean, if you're talking about the Xinjiang,
the Gobi
region.
Desert, yes, it is. But here in America, we have plenty of inhabitable land we could double, triple our population and be just fine. And in theory, that's a good thing, right? More people is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Where would you want a new big city? A new major city?
I do like cities. So I'm a bit of a city nerd. In America, is there one place that I think that we're missing a city? Obviously, all the,
I'll tell you. I have an answer for this after you answer.
You go ahead first.
I think Southern Oregon.
So there is a
Southern
relatively
Oregon is
big gap
extremely
between San Francisco and Portland.
Southern Oregon or Northern California?
I think there's room for another big.
I know why there's not. I know why there's not
city.
I know why there's not a city there right now. I mean, the climate is pretty rough out there.
Where like in like Gold
just
Beach
on the coast
area?
itself. Yeah, Gold Beach. It's not and it's tough. I don't think it's possible for ships to dock as well, which is a pretty important thing. For being a port city is very important.
Why is it not possible for ships to dock there?
I think either turbulent waters or shallow. It's too shallow to dock. I don't think they have a deep water port.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be a great location. I mean, in the summer, you can't beat it.
I'd love Medford to become the new biggest city.
Medford.
The new biggest city on the West Coast.
That could be fun. That could be fun for sure.
Do you want to wrap it up for this first episode?
Yeah, let's wrap it up for this first episode. I hope you all got a little bit of a feel for where this podcast is headed. we plan on posting at least 2 times a week.
Yep.
Indefinitely. And, you know, so I think that
Let's see what we got on the agenda here.
on the agenda, you know, there's, you know, we just a little bit of a looking ahead part about potential upcoming guests. We'd love to have guests on the show. I know in the near future, Mir is a friend, a PhD student, right? Russian guy.
Yeah, I'd love to invite him over if he's, you know, he's also in economics and politics, has background in both. I think it'd be great to invite him.
Right.
Very smart guy, very knowledgeable, and would be a great guest to have. I think just inviting people over that have a little bit more knowledge than us. I think we have to admit that while we try to figure these things out, we are not economists. We are not. We don't even have a degree in the field that we're going into right now. So that we're studying. So.
Right, and that's a bit of the point, right? If you want the absolute best news, you're going to go listen to the Daily on New York Times or or Apple News, where they have not just PhD candidates, literal you know, doctors of philosophy who come in in economics and in math, who come in and talk about these trends and talk about, you know, they've spoken to world leaders and they know what's up. But we offer a different kind of perspective. You know, we're younger. We offer a student's perspective. And we're trying to formulate our own opinions, you know, as we come on here, right? We're not trying to say or tell anything. We're just trying to talk to each other, and I believe talking and discourse is, you know, part of what makes this country so great.
Yeah, I think what you're gonna like is that we're basically figuring it out along as we talk, which I think is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just stick with us. I think, you know, one of the first people that's going to be listening to this podcast is going to be some friends and family. So, you know, if you're hearing this right now, if you made it this far, thank you very much. You know, we really appreciate your time supporting us in this venture. It's been a long time coming for something like this. I think a lot of people would have loved to hear some of our stories that we have.
I think so. And specifically, one of the most interesting things that I think we will get into is some of our future plans, right?
Yeah.
And this has been a huge topic recently within our relationship with others, and especially our families. You know, we don't know what we want to do, but we know we don't want to be part of the you know, the laptop class, right? Which is the folks who log in to their laptop at 9 a.m. every day and can close it up after a few Zoom meetings at 5 p.m.
I think we definitely want to make an impact on the world. How that happens, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
So, you know, if you're listening to this, if you have maybe some segments that we could potentially implement together, some sort of you know, fun little games that we could play that you think would be interesting, I think we'll definitely, you know, give it a try.
Hit us up anytime.
Hit us up. I think that's gonna be it for today's episode.
Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Peace.
Take care. Bye-bye.